Okay, so I am so happy to be here for the Spooky Queer Film Theory. For most of these shows, you all have joined me on a tour through some favorite movies of my childhood. Tonight, this will not be that. This is not a movie from my childhood. I have begged Mike to do this movie since 2019, and I felt like in light of Ryan Murphy's recent opus, it would be appropriate to talk about the original gay serial killer exploitation film, William Friedkin's Cruising. So how many people here have seen Cruising? It's a super overtly queer film. There's no subversive text here. It's like super in your face. It was filmed and released in 1979, 1980. It exists in and captures a very small, unique, glorious slice of queer history that is post-Stonewall and pre-AIDS, a decade of queer liberation and sexual abandon that's probably never going to happen again. A very small detour first, though, of a little bit of a history refresher, because the end of the 70s saw some really critical things happening that defined the space that Cruising was released into. So yes, queer liberation, also straight panic. So Anita Bryant started her virulently anti-gay campaign in 1977, Save the Children. It was, starting with successfully repealing an anti-discrimination ordinance in Florida that then spread across the country, equating queers with pedophilia. Harvey Milk was then murdered in a nationally publicized anti-gay hate crime in 1978. And in 1979, Jerry Falwell started the Moral Majority, a far-right Christian hate group that had a major hard-on for anything homo. Along with these larger national issues, queers in New York were also dealing with a string of murders in their community, many unsolved, including the murder series that, along with the book, inspired the movie Cruising, the bag murders, or if you're the NYPD, the fag in a bag murders. Gay men being murdered, dismembered, and dumped in the river in bags. So one of the men accused, but never charged of those crimes, a gay man named Paul Bateson, who was convicted of a totally different gay murder, was also an extra on William Friedkin's The Exorcist. So that, along with all of this other context, led to him adapting the book into this highly protested and controversial movie that we're going to kind of journey into today. Now, monster can mean a lot of things, and of course, being as super nerdy as I am, we're going to talk a little bit about Webster's. So monster is something unusually large. It's one who deviates from normal or acceptable behavior, a threatening force or a person of extreme wickedness or cruelty. And tonight I'm going to talk about all these different kinds of monsters, starting with the movie itself. Filmed inside gay leather bars in New York, like the Ramrod and the Mine Shaft, using over 1,600 club patrons as extras for all the scenes, resulted in such sexually charged visuals of such deviant behavior that the MPAA head said there weren't enough X's to rate the film. So Friedkin had to cut 40 minutes of the footage. You may have heard about this with James Franco's interior leather bar. That's a whole other can of worms we're not even gonna open or go into about his, whatever his deal is with that. But despite the cuts, there's still some super amazing scenes capturing the community on film in a way that I had never seen before and still doesn't make sense. I think besides Cruising, there's Gay Sex in the 70s, this really amazing documentary. But that's about it. That really captures this moment in queer history. So we're gonna start with seeing the second scene of the film, which really introduces us to this world that a killer is moving in. And while you're watching it, just see if you can note any whistles in the background of the scene. Let's play the first clip. another kind of monster, and it's not Mr. Do I Qualify, who is one of the alleged serial killers of this movie. This tableau, men in leather and jock straps with no shame, sucking and fucking and engaging in all kinds of kink, this is exactly the kind of wickedness that Anita Bryant and the moral majority were warning straight America about. This was straight America's monster. Hide your kids. The leather daddies are going to convert them. And also murder them, because as we know, gays are wicked, cruel deviants ready to murder on a whim. So if the Save the Children campaign needed a visual to back their message, all they had to do was tell their followers to go look at cruising. And they weren't alone in their fear and hatred of this malign group of gays. Did you hear any of the whistles in the background of that scene? You'll hear them throughout the film. It's the ghosts of all the protests that happened through the filming that were led by groups of gay activists. Blowing whistles to disrupt audio and scenes, flashing lights, destroying equipment. The gays also feared this image being used to represent their community. They weren't these types of gays who were seen as monsters even amongst their own kind. Having kink leather queers associated with the gay rights movement was seen as a detriment, and in some spaces still is, threatening all potential for progress to be accepted within mainstream society. And additionally, living in an era where there was very little positive portrayal of queers, and honestly, like the most recent positive portrayal of queers before this was William Friedkin's other piece, Boys in the Band, that happened at the beginning of the 70s. But trying to release this film about a gay serial killer in the middle of all this hetero panic was tone deaf, to say the least. Only a straight white man would think it was okay to release this fever dream of a film during that era. And later on, Friedkin pretty much admitted as much, saying that the timing was just not there. However, with the light of the 40 plus years we have now, you can see the effort of Friedkin to draw attention to the ways that queers are being dehumanized by authority figures, especially the cops. So Al Pacino plays a cop who is sent undercover to detect the serial killer in the gay lover scene. And Pacino and the character had zero idea what he was getting into. And a lot of the movie is him trying to ingratiate himself into the community and looking absolutely terrified while he does it. And Friedkin says this is absolutely true, that Al Pacino was totally scared, especially as all these protesters were protesting during the filming of the scenes. He had no idea what the fuck was going on and why they were so mad. He thought they should be grateful, right? And he came off of Dog Day Afternoon, which is one of the other somewhat positive portrayals of queer people in the 70s. So there's a great scene that I'm not going to be able to show of Pacino doing poppers and dancing like nobody's watching in the summer here, and I fucking love it, so definitely go watch it even just for that. But throughout the film, we see Pacino explore this new underground world and examine his own sexuality, simultaneously introducing mainstream America to things like public sex environments like Central Park, or what kind of Vaseline do you use for fisting? As time goes on, Pacino gets deeper and deeper undercover, and we finally get to meet the biggest monster of the film. So let's roll the second clip.
Can do. What the hell is this?
What's going on? Give me a hand. What's your name?
What are you doing here?
Did he do anything? No. Did he show you his knife?
No.
Now, what were you faggots doing up there? What is this shit, man? You were gonna stick him, weren't you? What are you talking about?
Whose room was it?
His.
Is that right?
I told you what we're doing has none of your business, so you have no right to come in there. You didn't have
I want to know what you were doing in there.
Nothing.
He's tied up on face down. Nothing.
Is this what you have in mind for him? Listen, we got to lock the sticky away for 3 years right now.
As tight as a chicken's ass.
And you want to do yourself a favor? Hey, listen. This guy bruised me. I didn't even know him. I don't even know his name. But he got me. Well, here's wrong with him. That's bullshit. Is that right?
I told you it was my room. I'm going to tell you. I want to see it now. You sure he is nice? What are you?
Get back to the room.
What was that?
Get back to the room.
What are you hitting me for?
Who pays for the room?
I told you right there, he ain't dead, man.
All right. Let's separate these two girls.
Get up.
So we're like all Al Pacino, right? Like, what the fuck? You know, every time I watch this, I'm like, what the fuck is up with that cowboy? So according to Freakin', all the incidents in this movie are based on real stories. And there was an NYPD detective that was an advisor for him on this movie and on The French Connection, who told him that cops would often use this tactic when they wanted to rough up their suspect. That way nobody would believe him if he tried to report it later. So do I think the NYPD would have done this? Absolutely. You know, and welcome to the real monster of this movie that Freakin's really highlighting the whole time, especially for queer folks. Fucking cops, right? No evidence arrests, physical assaults, fag bashing. The movie starts with two cops forcing two trained sex workers to give them blowjobs. Freakin does his best to show the extreme cruelty of the NYPD towards queers then and still now. It's no surprise that the bag murders were unsolved. Their attempt to blame a whole series of murders on the suspect of a completely different murder just because he was gay was a common tactic, especially when it came to deaths in the queer community. Even Pacino in the scene has this moment of clarity, seeing the evil from the perspective of the gay community, knowing that the other man was innocent. Now, one of the tricks that Freakin employed in the film, and that was really confusing to me for years until I finally read this, was that he used different actors to portray the killer throughout the movie while using the same voice audio for all of them to try to because he felt that the NYPD were ignoring multiple murders that were happening in the community, that they were lumping all the murders into one because it was just easy. Oh, it's just this like homo and homo crime. It's just this one guy killing all these people. We don't need to invest all these individual murders. So there's so much more in this movie that I don't really have time to talk about. There's so many more bar scenes. Pacino gets jealous with his new gay friend's boyfriend, which was the one scene that Freakin said that he let Pacino like go Pacino on. So that's also worth watching. There's Pacino learning about the hanky code from Powers Booth. There's Freakin intersplicing anal sex clips within the stabbing scenes to get them past the censors. And Pacino and Freakin both maybe finding a little bit more out about themselves than they were comfortable with at the time. And then finally, my favorite perennial conspiracy theory, that Bruno Kirby is an uncredited extra seen in the aforementioned Vaseline fisting scene. Please go watch it, make your own decision. So while this film is full of monsters, none of them came close to the monster that queers had to fight next, AIDS, which hit the scene less than a year after this movie's release, and which was to become a boogeyman of the queer community for the next 2 decades. And so it kind of made me think and reflect on what a monster really is. Just a reflection of our fear and ignorance taking up all the space in the room. And I think about how that fear and ignorance had created this fucking monster that killed an entire generation of gay men and trans folks, including probably most of those 1,600 extras. The passage of time can kill monsters, and so now this movie doesn't really feel as demonizing and grotesque in the new light. And instead of a room full of monsters and potential killers, all I see when I watch it are all these beautiful men living their best fucking life despite the monsters that were around them. And so for me, I take this movie as a challenge for myself and for all of us to keep finding our own monsters so that maybe one day we can hope to live and be that free. Thank you.